All right, count us in. What is up, Miami Dolphins fans? Welcome to this week's edition of Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk. I'm your host, Chris Perkins. That's my boy, David Furones. He is your Miami Dolphins beat writer. And Furones, let's get right into it, man. Let's dive right into this thing. The 1-0 Miami Dolphins, first place Miami Dolphins, coming off that 20-7 victory over the New England Patriots. This week, they head up to Baltimore to take on the Ravens. But first, we're going to talk about that 20-7 victory. Great job all around by the Dolphins. Yeah, you can nitpick on some things, but look, let's start at the top, Furones. Mike McDaniel, the rookie head coach, he gets a W over the GOAT, Bill Belichick, the six-time Super Bowl champion. The Dolphins, to me, look very prepared. They weren't shook by anything that Belichick threw at them on both sides of the ball. Teron Armstead, the left tackle, talked about communication and identification were a little bit shaky in the first half. The offensive line was able to improve on that in the second half. So there's some halftime adjustment coaching right there by the Dolphins. Furones, what did you think overall of the coaching job and specifically of the job that Mike McDaniel did in his debut?
Hey, Perk, first of all, glad to be on the second episode of Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk. Let's see if you bring a little more positivity now this time after we're coming off a Dolphins win. After all that negativity we saw. I'm just messing with you.
No, I saw you say that on Twitter. You were part of that. By the way, I'm going to change the name of my Twitter page to Everybody Hates Chris.
That's perfect. That's perfect. But yeah, I mean, Mike.
What did you see there, Furones?
Yeah, I mean, what a debut for Mike McDaniel. To get his first head coaching victory against Bill Belichick, possibly the GOAT, a lot of people would say so. He's number 3 on the all-time coaching wins list and 6 Super Bowl rings, so hard to dispute. To face him, it showed that the moment wasn't too big for Mike McDaniel. He was prepared for this. He talked about so much how he always took these mental reps to put himself in these game situations, all those years as an assistant, all this time throughout the offseason leading up to this moment, even this week. He mentioned how he was mentally putting himself in different situations, so we saw as few surprises as possible. And you know Bill Belichick is always going to throw whatever he can at any young, whether it's a young coach, if it's a young quarterback that he's facing, which, by the way, Tua Tagovailoa also has handled that okay. He's now 4-0 against Bill Belichick and those defenses. Granted, a lot of it is what the Dolphins have done in those games, team-oriented game, a lot helped by the defense. But Mike McDaniel, he showed, hey, 4th down, 4th and 7, which we see some other first-time head coaches, notably just last night on Monday Night Football, and maybe not make the best decisions when they have a key situation. Granted, that's end of the game for Broncos and Coach Nathaniel Hackett. End of the half for Mike McDaniel. Clutch call to go 4th and 7 and call that pass play. Jalen Waddle slant over the middle. Waddle does the rest. Tyreek Hill said Mike McDaniel needs a wheelbarrow for a certain his nether regions, we'll say, after making that call. It was a very gutsy call. And just overall handled any adjustments in game. You mentioned the offensive line. They had to shuffle a little bit. Whatever Bill Belichick threw at them. And, hey, Bill Belichick, it didn't really work out too well. That whole plan of coming in a week early, getting all those practices in the South Florida heat and humidity really didn't make much of a difference. It seemed like the Patriots were never really in it. And second half, they already started down 17-0, and it's only more difficult for a team from out of town to deal with the early September heat and humidity of South Florida. And they got that one touchdown drive, but other than that, it was never really that competitive of a game.
Yeah, and I will say this also. I thought that the players handled it very well. Later on, we're going to talk about what you saw from the defense. We're going to make our predictions. We will also hear from Anthony Beck, the XFL St. Louis Battlehawks coach, because on this show, we're going to endeavor to bring in neutral voices, whether it's gambling experts, fantasy football experts, scouts, other coaches. So we'll talk to Anthony Beck here in a couple of minutes in an interview that I taped yesterday. But Furones, before we throw to that, let's go to the lightning rod. Tua Tagovailoa, 23 of 33, 270 yards, 1 touchdown, 104.4 passer rating. There were some things that he needs to clean up, right? There were a couple of throws where he was in the grasp and he tried to get rid of the ball. You could nitpick on the throw to Tyreek Hill that Tyreek jumped up and grabbed it. Matter of fact, Tyreek was good after the game on that one too. He said, "I used to be a big man in junior high. People don't believe that." And he said he just kind of made a big man play. Another throw by Tua that it looked like McCourty had a chance to intercept. It was batted away by a teammate. But here's what I liked about what Tua did. He didn't try to do too much. He got the ball into the hands of his playmakers. And here's what I liked about McDaniel when we talk about his coaching and staying, keeping the team within itself. Tua was throwing short and intermediate passes. There weren't a whole lot of deep throws. He did throw fairly deep to Alec Ingold, the fullback on the one down the sideline, but pretty much we saw Tua's accuracy, which is his strength, and he gets the ball in the hands of the playmakers, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, where they can get some yards after catch. And to me, that's going to be the bigger part of this offense is those short controlled passes. And that's not a slam on Tua. That's the team playing to its strengths. That's the offense playing to what it does. So I like the play calling. I liked what I saw from Tua overall. There are some things to clean up. But look, he's a young quarterback. So overall, I thought it was an encouraging start for Tua. Furones, what did you think to that extent?
Yeah, Perk, I think you said it. Ultimately, it was good enough to win. He made throws. He got the ball to his playmakers, Tyreek Hill in space, a lot of underneath throws. Just had to manage the game. It wasn't a game that he had to go out and win, so you still do want to see that eventually if the time and place comes where you might need to get into a shootout when the defense isn't as dominant against maybe some of the more challenging offenses in the AFC. So he didn't wow you with any of the deep throws that maybe we saw him start to add in training camp, and he didn't have to go hit Tyreek Hill 50 yards down the field in stride. That opportunity never really presented itself, which you still want to see in a regular season game. Sure, there were some near turnovers, a couple notably late, a real head scratcher that he threw. It went right to a Patriots defender, and he was under pressure, under duress, and you're wondering, what is he thinking? You're protecting a lead here. You can't do that. I know last year we saw so many instances where he made that one real head-scratching interception, and you usually saw him bounce back, but he was always good for at least one of those, and I guess the Patriots, at least in that situation, they weren't opportunistic enough to take advantage. Of course, the one to Tyreek Hill could have easily been intercepted, but Tyreek goes up and gets it over a rookie cornerback. So he did skip a couple of passes where you saw a lot of the accuracy for the most part, but there were some instances where it was just an odd, very underthrown pass. One of them, the very first play of the game, which was, I think the timing was thrown off by a high snap from Connor Williams. I know that was an issue for a lot of training camp, and after that, at least Williams got the snaps under control. It wasn't really too noticeable in that regard. So ultimately, it was good enough to win. He got the ball into his playmakers' hands, and although there were some near turnovers, he never actually turned the ball over. So the Dolphins ended up 3-0 in the turnover margin battle, which, like Mike McDaniel said, that's winning football. That's usually going to be good enough to win. So while Mac Jones did make those mistakes against the Dolphins defense, Tua Tagovailoa, although there were opportunities for the Patriots, he didn't ultimately make those same mistakes on his end. But you still would like to see him be more efficient, complete all the passes he was looking for, those ones in particular that were off target, skipped, and then also not hold on to the ball too long. Some of those instances where he did take a sack, some of that was on the offensive line, some of that on him in certain cases, and then just make better decisions when he is under that pressure, getting hit and taking sacks.
Yeah, and a couple of other offensive notes before we go to the Anthony Beck interview. Pro Football Focus had Connor Williams and Terron Armstead rated very highly. Robert Hunt got a pretty good grade, but we also heard Mike McDaniel say it's tough to do something good on that offensive line if every single player is not working in concert. And so 3 guys could be doing the right thing. If one guy messes up, that could blow the whole play. Tight end wise, we know Cethan Carter is in concussion protocol. Mike Gesicki, 1 reception for 1 yard. He had 25 snaps, which represents 42% of the offense. Very quickly, David Furones, an issue. Is that some sort of harbinger for what we can expect from Mike Gesicki? And do you expect Gesicki to be here after the trade deadline?
Boy, yeah, the hot seat here with the trade deadline. So,
I know it.
Yeah, well, at least Mike McDaniel said the game plan going in was to get him more involved, and then it just kind of worked out that way. Boy, for it to happen week one after all this offseason talk, the franchise tag, and then the new offense, and can he block in this scheme, and that he got extended preseason work because he still needed to work as a traditional inline tight end. Yeah, for there still to be kind of this cloud, this drama over Mike Gesicki, and then now week one he is used so little, one reception on one target for 1 yard. Yeah, I would have liked to see him get more involved, just so that it could kind of quiet all this noise around him, and see that he could still in this offense still be used in the same ways that he was before, while kind of finding a balance where, okay, you need him to start becoming this inline tight end in this new offense, out wide zone blocking scheme, tight end pivotal in run blocking. You need him out there for that. You're going to use Durham Smythe more often. You kind of telegraph plays when he's not on the field, and you have Durham Smythe in, and okay, well, this is a run look now. All right, Mike Gesicki's in the game. All right, it's probably a pass look. So I think Mike McDaniel does want to get him more involved. Let's give it a few weeks before we start really getting into, boy, are they going to be shopping him around? I know a couple of teams, Chris Greer said, did ask about him, but the Dolphins said they were never really too serious in those trade conversations. So let's give it some time. I think Mike McDaniel will look to feature him because he is this offensive whiz, innovative enough to try to not just stick to strictly what he wants to do in the role that the tight end can be used, but maybe adjust in the ways that he does use players' skill sets. So I do want to see that over a few more weeks, especially these upcoming games, challenging defenses as the Dolphins have to face if Mike Gesicki can get more involved.
And one more offensive line note. We know Austin Jackson has the right leg / right ankle injury. Mike McDaniel said they will keep some eyes on that. So we will keep some eyes on that situation also. So right now we are going to talk to Anthony Beck, 12-year NFL tight end, actually a man who I covered when he was at West Virginia, and I was covering University of Miami, back old Big East football. And then Anthony Beck went to the New York Jets, and I moved up to covering the Dolphins. So had a couple of more years of Anthony Beck coverage, but we'll throw to the interview right now. Here's what Anthony Beck had to say about your Miami Dolphins victory over the New England Patriots. All right, so welcome back to Dolphins Deep Dive. I'm Chris Perkins, and occasionally we like to bring in guests, neutral parties, I'll tell you, to kind of comment on the Miami Dolphins and see what's going on there. This week, we have Anthony Beck, somebody who everybody down here is going to remember from his college days at West Virginia playing against the University of Miami, back in the Big East. How's that, Anthony? And then a first-round pick of the hated New York Jets. That's how Dolphins fans know the Jets. And, he was with the Jets for a few years, bounced around the league, played where at Arizona, Washington. Do I have that?
Yeah, 12 seasons. I did Jets for 5, Bucks for 3, St. Louis, Cardinals 2, and then I finished up with the Chiefs.
Okay, with the Chiefs, so not Washington. Yeah. So anyway, so Anthony, let's jump right into this. Let's dive on in, as we say here on Dolphins Deep Dive. The Dolphins defeat New England 20-7. Coach Mike McDaniel, the rookie coach, he gets his first victory against Bill Belichick. How significant is that for Mike McDaniel to have that in his back pocket that, hey, I wasn't outcoached by the genius, by the guru, Bill Belichick, and will that make a difference going ahead, Anthony?
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, it's a division win, which is huge. Anytime you can win against a divisional opponent, in particular a team like the Patriots, yeah, you're right. That's a big one, especially early in the season. Clearly there was a lot of swirling around about the Patriots offensively, how they would look, how they would be with their new coordinator situation and who's going to be calling the plays and how that all would unfold. But I really felt that was something that played into Miami's hands. I really felt like the defense was the big difference maker in the game yesterday. I thought Tua protected the football. He was fortunate not to get a fumble on that sack. I believe in the second quarter they were able to recover it. But outside of that, it was a clean game. I thought Mike McDaniels did a nice job making sure that he featured his best players. I think Tyreek Hill touched the ball. I don't even know. I was trying to think of the touches at least 10 times throughout the game, 12 times, I think, targeted wise. So he was a guy that was definitely, on the minds of them getting connected. And there's a lot of playmakers when you have Hill and Waddle, the tight ends. They have a solid run game in the backfield, and an offensive mind like with Coach McDaniels. That's huge. So I think when I watch this team, I think the thing that popped off yesterday was their defensive play, very aggressive. They got after Mac Jones, and it boded well for them in the football game. And they got a couple turnovers, and they were able to convert. But getting up early on the Patriots, especially when they're they're trying to figure out what they are offensively, that was the difference in the ball game.
Yeah, and Anthony, I should say Anthony joins us as the coach of the XFL St. Louis team. And I'll ask you, managing the quarterback, and of course, Tua is a lightning rod down here. A lot of people believe in him. Some people not so sure. Tua yesterday, 23 of 33, 270 yards, one touchdown, a 104.4 passer rating. And look, Anthony, the Mike McDaniel offense is almost a short to intermediate passing game. Get the ball in the hands of the playmakers. Number one, is that an offense that plays to Tua's strengths? And number two, how did Tua do yesterday? You mentioned a couple of things, but how did Tua do overall to you?
Yeah, it's all about building confidence in your quarterback. I think that's what Tua needs. Obviously, more games, more plays. Where he gets an opportunity to be the focal point of the offense week in and week out, and make good decisions. I thought he made really good decisions in the game. I thought he did well against the blitz packages that the Patriots ran against him. There's a lot of pressure. I mean, you're right. It is a split pretty much down the road about, if Tua is the guy, if he can be the quarterback of the future, or he's not, and, they need something different. I think that, when you have a smart offensive coordinator, the strength is to get your quarterback in an opportune situation to get the ball out of his hands to guys that are open. They had to make a couple plays. I mean, Tyreek tied that one ball down the sidelines. Tyreek had to go with one arm and bring it down. I mean, that's just great play, but you're right. A lot of the catches, you got superior athletes that can catch the ball and make plays in space. That's going to be a big part of what they do. But, leaning on him to 4th and 7 to make a play and convert. I mean, that puts confidence in your quarterback. And I think that's what Tua needs right now, and I think as they continue to play, and if they can stay in close games that are competitive, and he stays down on the mistakes, he can be a successful player in that system and for that team. So, we'll see. I think it's a week by week deal. I mean, you got to put together a couple solid performances before you feel real comfortable about it. You know how the fan base is. They're always finicky. It's always going to be on the quarterback, when you lose too. So, let's see how it finishes out. But you're right. It's a big opening win against a division opponent. And that bodes well for what they're trying to do, at least through after 1 week of the season.
And Anthony, you mentioned the defense, and look, I'm a big fan of this defense. I know a lot of people nowadays in the NFL want to talk arm strength of the quarterback and scoring 27 points per game and slinging it all across the yard, but this defense is a really good defense. It can be a game-changing, play-making defense. Can that style get you to the playoffs in the NFL nowadays?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you got to take strategic chances. I thought that they dialed up some really good blitz opportunities throughout the game to get Mac Jones off his spot. They made plays on the football in the passing game. Were able to get some turnovers, and that's what you need. The one thing that shows up on film is they play hard. They play hard. They play fast. And, that's something, again, if you can maintain that style of play throughout the season, absolutely. That's a difference maker. And, anytime you can hold an opponent really through 3 quarters with no points, that's going to be big, in particular the first half. It gives your offense a chance to get going, and they took advantage of that. So complimentary football ultimately is how you win games in this league, and that was a good start for them.
Anthony, Vegas put the over under at 8.5 wins for this Dolphins team. They're 1-0 right now, but the next few games are getting tough. Starting with going to Baltimore next week. You've got Buffalo, you've got Cincinnati coming up. Do you have any guesses on how this Dolphins team will do this year? That 8.5 number, is that? Are you thinking 8 wins, 10 wins, 7 wins? What are you thinking there, and the immediate future for this team?
Yeah, I think it's to be determined. You're right. I mean, their schedule is pretty strong here. You got the Ravens, Bengals, Bills, and then you have the Jets, who, at some point they're going to get that figured out. But if Zach Wilson comes back, he'll be just kind of getting back into the game. So, and then you have the Vikings, the Steelers. It's not easy now. I don't know if any of that's guaranteed. I think 500 is a good point to start at in that 8-win area. I think it's very feasible. Their schedule does lighten up a little bit towards the end. With teams like the Texans and the Browns. And the Bears. So they do have a string of areas where they can put some things together. But I think eight's good. That's a good number to start with. If they don't get to that, then, that means they probably didn't take care of business of the teams that, you're supposed to beat, or at least you're evenly compared to. If they do get 8 wins, that means they're taking care of business. They've knocked off a couple teams that were good, and I think you're heading in the right direction. So that's where you want to be. You want to be trending up, and if they can get around that 8-win mark, I think that's a successful season for this team.
We're joined here on Dolphins Deep Dive by Anthony Becht, a man who has done it all from college football to the NFL to being a commentator. Now he's a coach in the XFL, coach in St. Louis. And let me make sure I have the league right. 18 league. Arlington coach Bob Stoops, Houston, Wade Phillips, Las Vegas, Rod Woodson, Orlando, T-Buck, Terrell Buckley, San Antonio, Hines Ward, Seattle, Jim Haslett, and Washington, D.C., Reggie Barlow. XFL gets going in February, correct, Anthony?
Correct, yeah. We'll kick off our season the first week after the Super Bowl, that February 18th weekend. Really exciting. When you got Dwayne Johnson, obviously you know that name very well. Danny Garcia, Jerry Cardinal with Redbird Capital. These are 3 thinking heads that really are passionate about this league and what it can bring to the table. You mentioned some really impressive coaches, Hall of Fame players, former players. It's an honor for me to be in that circle. I think for this league, when it came to really me being a part of it, it was all those things you just mentioned that made it something that was intriguing. Being a longtime player, a guy that played in the league with multiple organizations. I have some coaching experience. I have a ton of media experience. I work with the NFL and helping guys transition from playing to the real world. So those things are all great. I mean, football speaks for itself. I know this game. I've called over 200 games where I had to play coach in the broadcast booth and critique decisions every single game. So, maybe the head coaching experience isn't there, but definitely as far as being a leader of men and having a plan and the details of what it takes to actually go out there and construct a team is something that's always been intriguing to me. So I pushed all my chips into this one and I sold a vision to them and they really, were aligned with that. And that's really what's important. So we're building our roster. They're going to have some announcements next week on our staff is full. So I have a great staff that I'm really proud of that we put together. We'll have our draft some point in November. And then from there, training camp will kick off the beginning of January, where we'll get 5 weeks to prepare for the season. So, for all those people out there that will miss football when that Super Bowl hangover happens, well, that next week we'll be rolling the XFL out and they can start, at least give us a chance that first couple weeks to watch the product. And I think it's going to be good.
Good deal. Good deal. Anthony, before we get out of here, let's go back to Tua because, again, he is such a lightning rod. In the off season, we saw stories about how he had done core exercises and things to strengthen his arm. How big a factor is arm strength, Anthony? I mean, do you have to be able to throw it 55, 60 yards in the air, or is being accurate at 30 and 40 yards good enough?
Yeah, listen, if you can get the ball 40 yards, you're rarely throwing the ball down the field at those kind of clips to actually, have to work to really build yourself up for those throws. The name of the game is accuracy and completions. Most of the pass plays happen within 20 yards. And that's a timing thing. That's understanding pre-snap reads, being able to see different things, and then ultimately checking it down to the open receiver when there. It's catchable footballs. It's being able to read and see and react very quickly. And if you can do that, arm strength is great. Arm strength is great, but most of those passes down the field aren't really wide open. They happen to be more the receiver making a great play, going up for a contested catch. You're not living and dying off the deep ball. So I think that a part of that's good, but I think his arm strength is actually really good. I think he built his arm strength up for those other routes, those 18-yard comebacks across the on the other side of the hash where you have to get the ball out firmly and get it crisply. He's got the timing, he's got the touch, but really it's really developing your game and finding different areas where you can get better. And look, the speed of defensive backs now, the speed of defenses is a lot higher in this day and age, and they get to the ball quickly. So you have to make sure that your pre-snap and the ball gets there in a catchable spot. So it's a part of the importance of a quarterback playing the position, but I'd say it's on the minimal end as far as what actually matters in a football game.
Oh, you're going to make some Dolphins fans very happy with that, Anthony. That's Anthony Beck. We are here on Dolphins Deep Dive. We will see you on the other side. Thanks a lot, Anthony, and good luck to you in February.
You got it. Thank you.
All right, so that's what Anthony Beck had to say, and David Furones, I'll throw it to you we'll end segment one with this. I thought it was interesting that Anthony Beck said it's not those downfield throws, the 50-yard long passes that you need the big arm for. It's actually kind of those 18-yard out routes and things along those lines. That's where he would prefer to see a quarterback with arm strength. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and that falls in line, Perk, with a lot of what I would hear from your predecessor in this role, Omar Kelly. He would often say this, that it's not so much the issues with the deep balls itself. It's those 18 to 20-yard out routes where the defense is and kind of the distance that you need to get on the throw at the velocity to not let the defense get to it. That's really one of the more challenging throws for quarterbacks, and especially what Tua needs to be able to accomplish. And yeah, like you said, a majority of the throws that a quarterback is going to make is going to be from that distance on in. So also falls in line with a lot of what I heard from Dolphins coaches throughout the offseason, like Darrell Bevel, quarterback's coach, also offensive coordinator Frank Smith, is that they saw in really their unbiased first view of Tua Tagovailoa this offseason that they felt he can make all the throws required of him. So, yeah, that is the key for him, is being able to get those throws, and now being another year removed from the hip injury and being able to generate more power, you need to see that and consistently. And I think a little bit more than we saw in the opener because he did leave some to be desired in that game, and I think he knows it as well. So he's looking to improve going forward.
Yeah, and I'll refer all of our readers to your excellent story, Dolphins preview story about what Tua did to strengthen his arm. Speaking of quarterbacks, as we get out of segment one here, there's been a lot of talk about, hey, maybe the Dallas Cowboys, who need a quarterback with Dak Prescott being sidelined, although now we know that he's not going on injured reserve. But, will Dallas call the Dolphins and inquire about Teddy Bridgewater? What would you think about that? Well, we got you covered on SunSentinel.com. Go to the high 10 on SunSentinel.com today. We have you covered on that. We have you covered on what the deal is with the offensive line and its health. Austin Jackson, how is his right ankle going to be? Anything you need to know on Dolphins, University of Miami, Miami Heat, anything you need to know about those storms brewing out there in the Atlantic. It's still hurricane season. That goes through November 30th. We got you covered. Check us out, SunSentinel.com. Back for segment two of the Dolphins Deep Dive right after this. Okay, so we are back for segment two of the Dolphins Deep Dive. I'm Chris Perkins, your host. This is David Furones, your Miami Dolphins beat writer for SunSentinel.com. And look, Dave, we've mentioned the defense and what the defense was able to do against the New England Patriots, held them to 7 points against the offensive mastermind, Bill Belichick. He's the guy who always comes up with something on both sides of the ball. He really wasn't able to generate anything last week, especially with his offense. And, Furones, I absolutely love this Dolphins defense. And I'll start right here. Are we giving the Dolphins defensive coordinator, Josh Boyer, enough credit for the job he did against that Patriots offense, which is kind of led by that funny system, right? They won't say who's the offensive coordinator. It's Matt Patricia. It's Joe Judge. Both of them are kind of doing the quarterback coach play caller thing, kind of splitting those duties. But what did you see from the Dolphins defense and the job that Josh Boyer did?
Oh, yeah, we talked about that in an earlier segment, that Bill Belichick idea that didn't work of bringing his team down early. Also, whatever he had brewing up his sleeves with the offensive coordinator mystery and Matt Patricia and whatnot, that really didn't work on Sunday in week 1. And Josh Boyer, he really answered the questions as much as he can in one game after a whole offseason of, well, can he still lead this defense when he doesn't have Brian Flores to lean on? He's always had him going back to New England and then now being his defensive coordinator the past 2 seasons where he had Brian Flores as head coach. And, well, Josh Boyer answered the bell. I think the key that what he did in this game was he probably didn't blitz as much as he's known to do. So that's kind of the book on him. And, the Patriots, Bill Belichick, knowing him from the past and having gone up against him in recent meetings, probably figured that was a lot of what they were going to do, a lot of the game plan, and he pivoted. So kind of keeping them guessing wasn't too predictable there. They actually blitzed. I saw 27% of the time, according to Stats Advanced Metrics. So that's less. They were in the 40s, I believe, last season, number 2 in the NFL, only behind Tampa Bay in blitz percentage on defensive snaps. And, of course, they blitzed their safeties more than anyone last year. So instead, this time, did it in spots. So kind of surprised Mac Jones and that Patriots offense, that Patriots offensive line when they did do it. And it worked when backed up. Brandon Jones comes through uncovered, untouched, and gets a strip sack, hits Mac Jones as he's about to throw, bounces right up to Melvin Ingram for a defensive touchdown. So played more coverage, didn't blitz as much, and then when they did blitz, it was effective in surprising the Patriots. So I thought that was the key.
Yeah, I thought the front 7 did an excellent job. I thought Melvin Ingram in his first game in a Dolphins uniform did a great job both rushing the passer and setting the edge. Let's talk about Yeah, he did a great job. Let's talk about the secondary very quickly, David, because this was a secondary that, a lot of people were saying, they don't have Byron Jones. He's on the PUP list, physically unable to perform with the leg injury. Eric Rowe out with the pectoral injury. Noah Igbenogany, I can't ever say that man's last name. I'm sorry, Noah, no disrespect. He was inactive, but listen, we saw some guys step up, and one of those prime guys that we saw step up, Nick Needham there on the edge, I think they went at him a little bit more in the second half. They went after him first play of the game, but Nick Needham held up. But tell us about what you saw in the secondary, and specifically, I asked people to send in some questions on Twitter for us, and we get one, speaking of the secondary, from Cartwright Brothers. Did Kader Kohu earn more snaps? So what did you think of the secondary, and Cartwright Brothers from Twitter, did Kader Kohu earn more snaps in your opinion, David Furones?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, that was Kader Kohu was my surprise of the game. I saw in your stock up, stock down. He was the stock up for sure. I like the way the Dolphins secondary stepped up without Byron Jones. First, the studs that you already know you have. Javon Holland on the back end, Xavier Howard locking up Devontae Parker, who is now the Patriots' #1 receiver. We'll say it as much of a Dolphins cast-off as he was. He is in that offense. He is their top target. And Mac Jones tried to go to him early, and that didn't work. Xavier Howard had him one-on-one in the end zone. I know a lot of Patriots fans will probably feel like something should have been called with the contact, but Xavier Howard got the tip, and Javon Holland's right there. There was the one play where X was called for the illegal contact, and it sure looked like a lot less contact than on that early play. So maybe the refs wanted to make up a call, but anyways, that resulted in the one touchdown later on in that drive that the Patriots did have. But you got what you expected out of Xavier Howard, got what you expected out of Javon Holland. Brandon Jones had a big game, led the team in tackles. He had the big strip sack when he came in, as he's known to do off the safety blitz. Was all over the field. Also, should have had an interception. Had that one, so his one pass deflection was a play that he could have easily made a play on. Nick Needham answered the call. As we know, he's reliable in that nickel corner role, but then when they went to 2 corners in a traditional 3-4 front, like they started off in, then he was on the other side, gave up the first catch, but ultimately he was fine there. And then when Kader Kohu came in, or whether it be him or Keon Crossan, I think we saw that trend of Kohu more late, and he made 2 big plays to end 2 late Patriot drives. One, the 4th down pass breakup against a bigger, was it Hunter Henry again? It was a tight end. And then also on Nelson Aguilar, I didn't know Kader Kohu had that hit stick on him because, I mean, we watched training camp and he was good, but we don't get to see them hit live like that. So that was really impressive to see that week one from him. Landon Roberts, I asked him about Kohu, and he said, well, everyone on this defense brings the boom, and that's newcomers included when you saw that from Kohu. So that was big to see. And we also saw him tackle in an open field Ramondre Stevenson, who outweighs Kohu by 35 pounds. Open field, brings him down for a tackle for loss. You love to see that kind of physicality out of a nickel corner because even though they're usually smaller guys, they are closer to the action, that line of scrimmage, all the physical play in there. So sometimes they do need to bring that out, and it was nice to see that from Kohu.
Yeah, it was. And listen, you know, we get a lot of questions and a lot of stuff on Twitter. Some of the people were asking what happened to Jaelan Phillips. He was a little bit quiet. Look, Jaelan Phillips is still a young player. He 8.5 sacks last year as a rookie first-round pick. He kind of got caught up a few times on Sunday. I know, listen, he was flipping sides, and so when he was on the offense's left side going up against offensive tackle Trent Brown, well, look, that's a tough assignment for anybody. So, but, you know, I thought Jaelan could have been a little more aggressive on things such as setting the edge. The pass that Ty Montgomery caught and rolled into the end zone, Jaelan, it appeared that he's the one who should have been on the pass coverage. It also appeared from watching the game over again, the video, that he got caught up in the wash, that Devontae Parker was running a slant slash post, and Devontae and Xavier Howard, who, as you pointed out, X was on Devontae all day. It seemed like they kind of blocked Jaelan out, and he had to kind of work over the top of them. And by that time, Ty Montgomery was open. But look, I'm not too concerned about Jaelan Phillips right now. Some people were just kind of wondering. I don't think there's any sense of panic out there about him among Dolphins fans, but we did get the question. He's a young player. He's not going to have a sack every game. He's still got some improving to do. There are guys around him on that front seven who can help as he continues to develop. So it was kind of a quiet game for Jaelan Phillips, but I don't think it's anything to be concerned about. Dave, do you have any concerns about Jaelan or anything that you saw on that defense as we wrap up segment 2 here?
No, you also have to remember he's trying to transition to be more of a complete outside linebacker. That was a big focal point all throughout the offseason. Last season he really excelled, and specifically when he was rushing the passer, that's something that he did. Going back to University of Miami, remember when he broke out in that 2020 COVID college season, and he was playing defensive end, strictly with his hand in the ground. Of course, the college game, his size, and that's more, and also in Manny Diaz's defense then, which was a really good defense that year. I know he got fired the year after, but and now the Canes have Mario Cristobal at the helm. But that he really excelled in that role. So it has been a transition to being that more hybrid type, and then now in the NFL he's standing up. So remember, that's what early on last season he had to transition to, and then really the Dolphins just had him more so just focus on, hey, do what you do, go attack the passer, and that's when you saw him start to rack up those sacks and get to that 8.5 mark, which was a franchise rookie record. So he is trying to add more things to his game. I think you saw him in coverage a little bit more often than you did last season. And hey, when you add a Melvin Ingram on the other side, and especially if the Dolphins were only blitzing 27% of the time, situations where you have both of them on the field, that means, hey, well, you're 3 down linemen and only one of them is blitzing. So one of them is going to be in coverage. I think in other games, and we'll talk about this a little bit too, you'll probably see Boyer go back to more of his traditional blitzing, aggressive defense, his trademark that he likes to do. So I think ultimately, yeah, those games you'll still see Phillips really shine. And then, hey, at the end of the day, he was there when the fumble recovery was there to be made, when Kohu jarred the ball loose. I know he probably wishes he was chasing Ty Montgomery, so I'm not sure exactly what the coverage was, but yeah, he was the closest man. And he wishes he had some plays back. I'm sure he wishes he made more of an impact, but I don't think it's anything to worry about moving forward.
Yeah, I think you got that exactly on the head right there, Dave. So Look, be sure to check sunsentinel.com once again for all of your everyday Miami Dolphins coverage. We'll have the latest on the injury situation. What about offensive line? Any moves that are going to be made there? What about at tight end? We mentioned Ethan Carter, who is in concussion protocol. We mentioned Mike Gesicki, and his name had been mentioned in some trade reports that his name came up. We'll give you the latest on that. Teddy Bridgewater, are the Cowboys going to inquire about him? And what's going to happen between the Dolphins and Baltimore this week? Check sunsentinel.com every day. We will have that. We'll have the readers Q&A like we had today, answering questions on all kinds of things. Check sunsentinel.com. That's the end of segment 2. We'll be right back for segment 3. All right, back here on Dolphins Deep Dive. I'm Chris Perkins, your Dolphins columnist for sunsentinel.com. That's my man David Furones, your beat writer for sunsentinel.com. All right, Dave. Well, the Baltimore Ravens, this was a game last season where the Dolphins kind of turned their season around with some unexpected manhandling of those Baltimore Ravens, a team that normally kind of bosses the Dolphins around. The Dolphins kind of flipped the script last year, and they were the ones who were doing the manhandling of the Ravens. Now, look, the Ravens have 2 significant injuries from last week's opener against the Jets. They lost left tackle Juwan James, our friend from the Dolphins. He's got an Achilles, the same Achilles injury that he suffered recently, maybe a year and a half ago. And then cornerback Kyle Fuller is out with an ACL injury. So, let's go with the Juwan James injury first as we talk about the Dolphins-Ravens game. There is a opening for the Dolphins to exploit that absence, right? When you have Jalen Phillips, who we were just talking about, when you have Melvin Ingram, when you can blitz from that side. Brandon Jones blitzed from the offense's left side last week when he got that strip sack that Melvin Ingram picked up and scored. So there is an opportunity right there for the Dolphins to take advantage of an unfortunate injury to the Baltimore Ravens. So Furones, whatever injury you want to take and whatever preview you want to start with in this Ravens-Dolphins game, whether it's Kyle Fuller and you're losing somebody to cover Tyreek Hill, or whether it's Juwan James, do you see the Dolphins able to take advantage of either of those injuries? Will they be a factor in the outcome of the game?
Well, yeah, Ravens already getting hit by the injury bug again after last season. That really sent their season into a tailspin. Right before that, the Dolphins had that big upset victory, which at the time was such an upset. And then the Dolphins ended up with a better record than Baltimore because the Ravens started 8-3. We're rolling. I mean, a few weeks earlier when they had just one loss, were number 1 in the AFC and ended up with 6 consecutive losses to finish out the season, under 500 and out of the playoff picture entirely. And then already week 1 now again. So, yeah, left tackle injury, Juwan James, that's going to be something to exploit. I think Josh Boyer will go back to more of his blitzing, aggressive style that he's known for, that we didn't see against the Patriots. And then now, because we saw it last year against the Ravens, how much he attacked Lamar Jackson, even bringing the safeties so often, that zero blitz, and getting those athletes out there to come at Lamar Jackson so that, hey, you're either going to have to make a quick read and find out who's open on this blitz, or find that one-on-one matchup that you like quickly because you're not going to have that much time. Or if you're trying to run, well, everyone's coming at you. And then we saw last year when he inserted Duke Riley at inside linebacker, letting Jerome Baker shift outside, and how much more speed on that end that gave the Dolphins to be able to contain Lamar Jackson's running ability. So all these kind of things that Josh Boyer can throw at him with this same defense, with a lot of the consistencies that we've seen from last season, he can bring back again, and especially if there is an injury at left tackle, and that'll be something with especially how the Dolphins now have more depth on the edge at pass rusher. Jalen Phillips is still there. Melvin Ingram was added in the offseason. Andrew Van Ginkel's still there, and now in more of a rotational role with Ingram in, but he's being worked back from what was listed on the injury report as illness. He had his appendix removed about 3 weeks ago now. So, yeah, slowly working him back in. He had a few, I think 7 defensive snaps last game. So Mike McDaniel said he expects his workload to increase. They could rotate more guys. Trey Flowers, who was inactive after he just signed with the team on roster cutdown day, he's another one they could throw at him. So just getting bodies in, taking advantage of what could be a shuffling offensive line of the Ravens. And then, Kyle Fuller in the secondary. That is still a very good secondary. You still have Marcus Williams back there at safety, Marlon Humphrey at cornerback. The Dolphins with their added weaponry, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, now that opens up, if you want to focus on one, opens it up for another. You figure a lot more defenses will focus on limiting Tyreek Hill. So could we see Jalen Waddle get more opportunities than he saw after he was targeted, 5 times? He had 4 receptions, and Tyreek Hill had 12 targets for 8 receptions. So maybe there is more of an even split if the Ravens end up focused more on that end.
Yeah, and listen, we talk about how coaches don't show everything in the first week, and you talk about could Waddle be more of a factor? Maybe Mike Gesicki could be more of a factor. Again, we heard Mike McDaniel say that he thought after the game that Gesicki would have had a higher snap count than the 25. He said the game plan involved Gesicki more, but as the game evolves, things happen, and so sometimes you deviate from that game plan. But when we talk about what the Dolphins are going to do defensively, and how much carryover there is from last year, Lamar Jackson's name comes up, and you talked about the zero blitzes. I would expect that they're probably going to do something similar, same philosophy, because look, it worked last year, and you've got a lot of the same players on this Dolphins defense that you had last year. You've got the same defensive coordinator. Now, obviously, they aren't going to come in with a carbon copy of that game plan, but I think the philosophy, I think the theory of, we're good enough that we can come right at Lamar. We don't think that he's going to crush our defense with his feet. We're good enough that we can keep him corralled. We can get the pressure on him. We can make those tackles. He's not going to have open receivers because we have X back there. We have Javon Holland back there. We have the guys that can cover. So I'm expecting the Dolphins to come at Lamar Jackson very aggressively, very hard. They've got our friend Kenyon Drake back there in the backfield running the ball. I don't think that's going to strike a whole lot of fear into the Dolphins. No disrespect to Kenyon Drake, but I think you focus on taking it right to Lamar Jackson, and if the Ravens can find another way to beat you or hurt you, tight end Mark Andrews maybe, go ahead and we'll make the adjustment in the second half if we're getting hurt. But I would think that Josh Boyer and this Dolphins defense comes out and they put a lot of pressure on Lamar Jackson. What do you think about that, Furones?
Yeah, in the NFL, if you find something that the opponent is having trouble with, you keep throwing it at them until they have shown they have adjusted. And on the other side, hey, Baltimore, they're not just going to say, boy, they got us all figured out. Now we can't do anything against them when they zero blitz. They're going to be looking to make adjustments too. So I think, the Dolphins will have to be prepared for adjustments that John Harbaugh and the Ravens offensively will be making. But I think the foundation of the game plan should still be something similar to what they showed in that Thursday night victory that was so successful, and then just be ready to adjust when you do find out, when the Ravens do expose what they are trying to counter with. So that'll be the ultimate key. And then, you mentioned Kenyon Drake. I know the Ravens are looking to see if J.K. Dobbins will be available. He's been working his way back from an injury. He was hopeful that he could play week 1, ultimately did not. So now if he gets into the mix, and that's another wrinkle, another person you have to prepare for. But so end of the day, I think foundationally, keep that same game plan, be aggressive, and then also be prepared to switch it up. And good for the Dolphins, they didn't show too much of the blitzes in week 1, but a lot of that tape was shown last year. So the Ravens are certainly analyzing that, dissecting it, and knowing that the Dolphins will primarily look to do a lot of the similar things that were successful that Thursday night last season.
All right, Furones, this is the part of the program where people are going to decide, does this guy know what he's talking about? It's the prediction. It's the prediction, and I'll go first with mine. Road games are tough in the NFL. Where you're going doesn't necessarily matter. It's going to be tough. New England came here. They found out it's tough. And when the Dolphins go up to Baltimore, they know it's going to be tough. For that reason, I'm picking the Ravens, and I'm going to take a low scoring game because I respect both of these defenses. I'm going Ravens 20-17. And I think that the Dolphins defense is going to do a good job. I said in the reader Q&A, the Dolphins Q&A that was on sunsentinel.com today, that I do think that this defense is going to put in a winning performance. But look, the other team has game plans. The other team has weapons and strategy. And because it's a road game, I think that's going to be the big difference. So put me down for Ravens 20-17. Furones, what are you thinking?
Yeah, and this is a home opener for Baltimore. The crowd is going to be very rowdy over there. M&T Bank Stadium has presented a lot of difficulties, to say the least, for the Dolphins in recent memory. Last 2 times over there, combined losing margin of 72 points. It was a 40-0, and then and 38-6 the year before. So ultimately, as much as I would love to say that the Dolphins are starting 2-0 coming off this victory, I do see the Ravens winning at home. And I'm close to you. I was actually thinking 23-20, so very similar score. I think the defenses stand out, and maybe it comes down to a Justin Tucker field goal at the end or something like that. So the Dolphins are competitive in this one. It's not going to be like that 40-0 Thursday night game from 2017, but it'll be a competitive game, and I'll give the Ravens a slight edge.
All right, so that's it for this week's edition of Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk. Thanks for joining us. Tune in next week when we review this Baltimore Ravens game, preview the Buffalo game. Thanks to our producer, Sean Pitts. That's David Furones. I'm Chris Perkins. Thanks for diving in on Dolphins Deep Dive with Perk. We'll see you next week.